Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome. Today is Tuesday, August the 8th, 2023. Welcome to Simply Cards by Kathi. I'm Kathi Ondas. We were originally scheduled to go live at 11 a.m. this morning as usual, but I had no power and I also had no internet service. I was able to put a little notice up on Facebook through using my phone and using cellular data, but there's no way to put a notice up on YouTube. So if you do follow me and there's something I'm supposed to be here and I'm not, check my Facebook page, Simply Cards by Kathi, because I'm always able to get a notice up there through cellular data. So I apologize for any inconvenience. I know there were some of you here earlier, and the only way I'm able to let you know is through my Facebook. So thank you, Louise, for joining me this afternoon. And I'm excited to share with you how to color on vellum. There are a couple different ways to do it, and I want to share that with you. So I am going to get started. I'm going to flip this camera down and we're going to get going because I have lots to share. So let's get down, and hopefully you should be able to see my desktop clearly. I do have a piece of copy paper here because with working with vellum, it's going to be easier for you to see if there's a white background. So let me show you what we're going to use real quickly here. I'm going to bring in the catalog. I chose to use the Dainty Delight stamp set, and we're going to use this large image here, simply stamping, coloring, no die cutting, but you can die cut vellum once you've colored it and use it that way. The other thing is I want to show you where to find the vellum. The vellum is on page 126, and it's different than vellum that you just buy say at the craft store. This is vellum cardstock. It's a little bit thicker and it's translucent. So that's on page 126. Now, the other quick thing I want to show you is this is what the new mini catalog looks like. So for those of you that are my customers, mine have been mailed out. So hopefully you've gotten them or you'll be getting them soon. They were mailed out at the end of last week. So let's get started. So I am going to bring in a piece of the vellum. It comes in 12 by 12 sheets, and you can see quite translucent. Vellum is less porous, so it takes longer to dry, and you can't use all types of inks on it. So, and we're going to talk about that. I'm going to show you two different ways you can stamp on it and color. I have two pieces of vellum here that I'm going to bring in, and I'm going to show you the two different ways that you can stamp on it. And I had them right here, so let's see where I put them. Right in front of me, but because they're porous, I didn't see them. These are 3 3/4 by 5. I have two different ones. And the first one, we're going to use Stays On ink. Now, StazOn is a solvent-based ink, and it's great for watercoloring, but not so great for alcohol inks because the alcohol will actually break the ink down and you'll end up with bleeding. But it's a really nice ink to use if you're going to color from the back side, which is usually how I color on vellum. So let's go ahead and ink this up. And I'm just going to give it, because I'm using a cling stamp, I don't need to have my piercing mat underneath to get a good image. So you want to ink it up really well. And then I'm going to stamp over to the side here. And I want to give it a good press to make sure I get a nice crisp image. All right. And I'm going to lift that up so that you can see it. Hopefully you can see. Now StazOn, you want to set it aside to dry, because if you color on the front, and there is a way to color on the front, I'm going to show you that, it's going to smear. So either set it aside, or if you don't have time to do that, you can easily set it using your heat gun on number 1. You don't want the highest heat. Oh. And you're simply going to go over it lightly, and you'll be able to see that the ink, the shininess of the ink goes away. And then you know it's set. So I'm just going to quickly set it. And then I typically will touch it, and you can see it's dry. So this is one way. Now there is a second way to stamp on vellum, and I'm going to clean my stamp off. I'm using StazOn cleaner. Now the StazOn cleaner is oily. It's a little bit oilier, and it cleans. That's what'll clean off your StazOn ink. Stampin' Mist, not so much. But what I do is, once I've gotten the StazOn ink off, I go ahead and clean it. Then I want to get the residue from the StazOn cleaner, and I go ahead and spritz it with my Stampin' Up! Mist. You can also use water, and I just go ahead and clean it off with my microfiber cloth. Okay. Now I'm ready to use it and show you the second way. Now the second way to stamp is to use your Versamark with a powder. So I have another piece here. I'm going to bring this in, and we're going to go ahead and ink this up with our Versamark. And then we're going to go ahead and stamp this. Now you want to make sure you don't have any on the sides, because remember, if you get this on, it's going to pull in. And I'm going to just go ahead and wipe this off the edge. And before I even stamp on this, I want to bring in my anti-static powder and make sure that I have some good coverage from that, so that I don't get any extra particles of embossing powder on that. So I'm going to pick this up, and I'm not sure if you can see it, but I have a good stamped image there. And we're going to go ahead and bring in our black embossing powder. And I'm going to use my little tray here and go ahead and sprinkle that. For some reason, it's kind of clumpy. I'm not sure why that is, but let's go ahead and you can see with the anti-static, there's nothing really on there. Now I want to get this away and off to the side, and I also want to clear off. I'm going to brush any of this away, simply because I don't want that on my paper. So you can see we have a pretty good image here, and I'm going to go ahead and make sure. Let's go ahead and heat set this. Now to heat set, you are going to use number 2 on here. And excuse the noise for a minute. And I follow it around. Once I see the powder change to a shiny, I just keep moving it around, because you don't want to burn your vellum. So I don't stay there once I see the powder turn to a sheen or a shine. Okay, that looks good. So there's a little bit of a difference in these two images, and I'm gonna pick those up and show it to you. You can see this one is more pronounced because we've heat embossed on it. Hi, Kathy, welcome. Sorry about earlier. We were without power and without internet service. And then you can see with the stays on, even the difference. I'm going to bring these two together. You can see right in here, this kind of filled in, so there's not a lot to color, where you have a little bit more here. But these allow you to do a couple different things. So these are the two ways to color on vellum, either to heat emboss with your embossing powder or to use stays on ink, let it dry, or set it on the low setting using your heat gun. Now, when coloring with the stays on, you want to, if you're going to use your alcohol markers, you want to color from the back, not the front, because again, alcohol will break down the stays on ink. Memento ink does not set well on vellum. It doesn't dry well, so you end up getting a lot of bleeding. So I'm going to turn my stays on over, the one that's stamped. And when you color on vellum, you want to use bright colors. And the reason being is you are working with a opaque paper or an opaque cardstock. And the dark inks will show up better than lighter ones. So I've chosen Melon Mambo. I'm using the Dark Highland Heather. I'm using Mossy Meadow. And I am using Granny Apple Green. And these are all the darks in there. So I'm going to use my smaller tip point, and I'm just going to start to color in here. So you're just going to work within the lines of the back. And we're going to color some of these, and then I'm going to show you what it looks like. Now, with some of these smaller flowers like here, again, just going to use the bullet point and just kind of work my way around here. So for those of you joining me, again, I apologize for earlier. We have been without power and internet off and on for 2 days. We had storms yesterday. And when I woke up this morning, everything was all but one clock, which is run by batteries, was flashing that power had gone out. And when I was able to get on my phone because of the cellular data, our internet service was down, and they were predicting it would be back up by 11:30. So I rescheduled it for 1, hoping it would be back up, and we'd be able to go ahead and do the video. So I'm just working around from the back. Now, with the stays on ink, I am working to stay within the lines here. And I want to flip this over and show you in a second here what this looks like. And I think this is just such a fun way to color. I'm going to use my Mossy Meadow on the leaves, and I am using the larger point. I'm using the dark because I want really bold colors to show through. So we're just going to go ahead and finish this up here. And let's see here. Now you can go over this, but what I like about using the alcohol blends on vellum is you don't have any streaking. The colors kind of just like when you're coloring on regular cardstock, the colors stay very even and you don't get the streaking that you do with water-based markers. Let's go with our dark here. And I'm going to use the bullet point for these small areas, and I'm simply lightly touching it. And then I'm going to flip this over and show you what it looks like before we finish up. Let's see. Coloring on vellum gives you a really soft, muted look. And I'm going to show you the difference once between the coloring on the front with the watercolor markers, which are our Stampin' Write markers, and coloring on the back. And we're not going to color two full ones, but I do want to show you the difference here. And then we are going to put the card together. Now I'm using the dark crushed curry for here. And then I'm going to come back in here with the Mossy Meadow. Sometimes you'll see that you've missed something, and you just go back in and pick it up. So I did receive my order from the new mini catalog last week on Thursday, which I had planned to share an unboxing with you on Friday, but I had gotten a summer cold and had lost my voice. And it is back, but it kind of comes and goes, where I'm a little bit hoarse. So, all right, we're almost done here. And then we're just going to use our dark Highland Heather to get these little flowers down here. And I almost thought of using the grape, but I thought it would be too dark. So we'll see how this looks. Now, again, remember you can always go back in and color over it to make the color deeper. All right, and I think we're good here. So let's flip this over. And here's what it looks like once you've colored on the back. And you can see it's a little bit more muted, but really very pretty. Now, with the one that is, and I did seem to get some spots on here because I think I had some on the paper from it spilling. So here's two different ways. I'm just going to show you quickly on this one, and then we're going to make our card. We're not going to color. Here I have my Stampin' Write markers. We're not going to finish the whole thing. You can color on the front of the vellum for a darker color with a water-based marker. And I'm just going to show you this. Now, typically, if I'm using white, I do not color on the front of my vellum, because if you go over the white enough, it's going to stain your heat embossed area in white, and it isn't going to come off. You can wipe some of it off, but it's still going to get some color. So let's color this one, and I color a couple leaves, and then I'm just going to stop and show you, I have one that's finished, the difference in the two. But I want to give you a good idea of what they'll look like. And let's do a couple of these. Okay, so this is what it looks like when you color from the front. So very vibrant. So let me bring in two that I did. Here's the one that is colored with all water-based markers. So that's your Stampin' Write markers, and it's colored from the front. So see how dark that is. Now let's bring in the one, and I'm going to bring in a white background, a piece of cardstock, so you can see the difference in the two. One is more muted and softer, and one is darker in color. So let's go ahead with the one we colored. And when you use vellum, you always want to mount it on a background so that it shows up a little bit better. So I've chosen to use just basic white. And when you go to mount it, vellum, you're going to use, I'm going to use multi-purpose glue with one of my silicone mats. I want to make sure my hands are clean, that I don't have any glue or anything on them. And I'm going to take a piece of craft foam or sponge, and all I did is cut a wedge out of it and put it with a paper clip. And I'm going to take my multi-purpose glue, and I'm going to spread it out on here. Now, to do this, you want to make sure your silicone mat is clean, because you're going to pick up anything that that's on it and go on the back of that vellum. It's going to show through. So I want to make sure I don't have anything on here, and I did clean these well. And I'm just going to spread some multi-purpose glue on here. And I'm going to take my little sponge and I'm going to spread this out very thin. Okay, and then I'm going to come in and on the back where I've colored, I'm going to go through and just spread my glue. And primarily on the areas where I did not color. So around the edges, because if I can get it to stick around the edges, that's all I really need. And you want to make sure that your sponge is also clean. So I do use these over. I keep them in a little container covered up. And after I've used them a couple times, I rinse them out with just warm water and let them dry and reuse them. So I'm just lining this up, and then I'm gently going to press down. Now, wondering how when this on the silicone mat dries, it'll just peel right off by you rubbing it, so it's easy to clean. So here's the basis for our front of our card. So let's bring in the rest of our supplies. Now I have several layers, much more than I typically use, just because I liked the look of the card. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm using basic white, just plain basic white, not thick. Usually I will use thick for my base, but because of the layers, I am not. So this is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. And I have a piece of mossy meadow that's 5 3/8 by 4 1/8. So don't worry about measurements. I will have the corresponding blog post with a PDF version up by 6 o'clock this evening for you. And the link will be right down below in the video description here. So let's go ahead and we're going to adhere this to the front. That looks pretty good. I now have a layer of, oh my gosh, the color that I used was Melon Mambo. And this is 5 1/4 by 4. And then I have another piece of Mossy Meadow that is 5 1/8 by 3 7/8. So I'm going to adhere these together. Let's get those on. And then I'm going to adhere my white to that. So you should have a nice little border all the way around. Looks pretty good. Let's just straighten it out a little bit. All right. And now, because I have my vellum on the basic white, we're going to go ahead and adhere this to the mossy meadow. Now I want to add a ribbon to this. And actually, I did not have a ribbon in Melon Mambo, but I didn't have white that I could color because my white ribbon didn't come. So I'm going to use two choices. We have a retired ribbon in mossy meadow that we can use, or you could use your linen thread. So I'm going to go ahead and use this retired ribbon. Use what you have. And I'm going to just put a little bit of tape runner or Stampin' Seal Plus around the back of my Melon Mambo to kind of hold my ribbon in place. And I'm going to wrap this twice. And I want it up enough on my stems that it's going to look like I have a bow for the flowers. And I'm going to bring it around. Let's go ahead and clip this. And I'm just going to press it down in the back to adhere it. All right, so we are set. And I'm going to bring these just a little bit closer together and make sure that they're taut so that my ribbon stays secure. So this one here and this one here. All right, and we're good to go. So now I'm just going to tie my bow. So we're going to go under, and I'm going to tie just a regular bow. I always kind of tie to the side because I feel I get a better bow that way. And I'm also going to take a glue dot, which I had here just a second ago. There we go. I'm just going to take a glue dot and I'll just take one and I'm going to pop it under where I'm tying my bow. That's going to secure my ribbon and keep it in line so that I don't have any slippage. And I'm just going to go ahead and tie. And then you can easily just work your bow to the size you want and trim your tails. So I'm going to do that now. Oops, and let's bring that underneath and I'm going to trim those down. And we can trim that a little bit more in a second here. All right. So now I'm ready to adhere this to the front of my card. So let's go ahead. And I have the Stampin' Seal Plus holding my ribbon in place. And just bring that down a little bit. Here's the front of our card. Now to give it some decoration, I'm going to use the Glossy Dots assortment. This has Melon Mambo in it. And we're going to add a couple of those to the front of the card. Thank you, Louise. I'm so glad that you like the card. I'm going to put one right about here. I always tend to do odd numbers. I think it's appealing to the eye. And I try to go into a triangle. It just helps your eye to follow the design. And I'm going to put one right about here. Now for my greeting, I've already pre-cut that and have it ready to go. I used one of the stamps from the Dainty Delight that said Celebrate You, because I thought it'd be great for a birthday or a graduation. And I simply stamped it on a piece of scrap white, trimmed it, and then cut a piece of the Melon Mambo. Same length, but 1/8 of an inch wider, so that I had a little mat to help the greeting show up a little bit better. So let's put that here. And I'm going to pop this up with a dimensional. And let's just grab a couple of these. And we're just going to pop this on. So lots of opportunities to use vellum for coloring, and whether you like a little bit of a muted color or where you like, I'm going to pop this right here. Let's trim this off just a little bit. I want it just a little bit shorter. And this one too. Okay. And we're going to pop it right in here along the edge. So that it adheres down. So here's the front of your card using the vellum. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. I hope it gave you, let me bring you back to me for a minute. I hope it gave you some ideas of how to use your vellum cardstock. Thank you, Kathy. I'm so glad you liked it. And experiment with it. It's so much fun. I'm going to be doing a lot more with vellum. I love using it. There's so many ways to add color, even to backgrounds. So I hope you enjoyed it. If you did like today's video, please give me a thumbs up. It helps me grow my channel. Feel free to share the video. And I will be back with you on Friday with a sneak peek of one of the new products from the fall catalog. So have a great day, and I will see you Friday at 11. So